Amani, I want to welcome you to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about yourself and what it is that you do that is really creative. So let's start with talking about what is it that you're doing right now. Tell us
Okay,
about
well,
tell us about yourself.
okay. Well, first, Catherine, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the invitation. Right now, my big project is I'm releasing my second book. It's called The Quiet Storm, a historical and cultural analysis of the power, passion, and pain of R&B groups. So that's kind of
Oh,
what
wow.
that's my big project probably for now and for the whole year. And then also I coach people primarily who work in the music industry, either as musicians or music professionals, on how to make better business decisions. Those are kind of my two things I do right now, in addition to being a professor and a professional DJ. So I kind of have my tentacles everywhere, but those are my two big projects right now.
Well, let's talk about this book because I am kind of intrigued by the topic. What is it that kind of compelled you to write about this?
So when I was in grad school, my thesis was on why there are no longer any black R&B groups. And then through my research, I found out that pretty much 99.5% of all R&B groups are black. So it's just R&B groups in general. And they've disappeared. So like I'll ask you, you could tell me kind of who are some of your favorite groups. If you think of your favorite R&B groups, who comes to mind? And then you could go ahead, share that with me. Who comes to mind right now when you think about that?
Really, when I think about that, and I don't even know if it falls in the category, but one of my favorite performers is Questlove, for example.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, really anything that he does, I think he's just brilliant.
Yeah.
But as far as thinking like the old traditional groups, that would be really, really challenging. Because I mean, what's interesting is my daughter, she's a teenager, came to me one day and she goes, "Oh my God, I love this song." And I'm like, "Well, what is it?" And it was by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay,
Which I
perfect.
was like,
Perfect. Yes, yes. So,
which I'm like,
so
this is so awesome, because
yeah,
they are a fantastic group.
yes. So they're in the book. Questlove is kind of who I aspire to be. He's like a DJ, musician, musicologist. Like I would love to be like a musicologist like him.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, am I allowed to play music on this? Are we allowed to play
Oh,
music?
sure you can. You sure
Okay,
can.
so like,
And he was behind that Summer of Love movie too,
yes,
I want to say too,
yes.
which was freaking fantastic.
So props to your daughter because I think this might be the song she might have played.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's the song. So Earth, Wind, and Fire. So really, it was my thesis in grad school. Then when I finished, I decided to make it a book. And so it's been like 4.5 years. Did research on like the criteria for the group to reach like the top 10 or 11 per decade, starting in the 50s to the mid 2000s. Record sales, Grammy nominations, uh, Billboard Hot 100 hits, notable performances are like some of the four main criteria. And we just have all the groups per decade, like a pictures of them, their Hot 100 hits, their story. And it's really, to make it sense, it's like my love letter to R&B groups.
I think that is absolutely fantastic, and I cannot wait to read this because
Yeah,
it's going to be because of the passion that I'm sensing from this. It's going to be good.
yeah, yes, yes. I agree. Yes. So thank you. Yes.
And while you're doing that, what are you doing in the meantime? You had touched upon a couple other things. You said you were DJing and things like that. So what else are you doing that you're willing to talk about?
Oh, sure, sure. No, no. So, like, I'm a professor. I teach music business at Cal State University, Fullerton. I've been there
Fantastic.
now for almost 7 years. And so
Love
I teach
teachers.
there
So
as a
fantastic.
professor.
Yeah.
I love it. It's probably my favorite thing that I do. And like for example, next Tuesday is the first day of school. So just how the kids get nervous, I get a little
Yeah.
nervous too. So, so that's good. And of course, I've been a professional DJ for 18 years. So I DJ corporate events, maybe sometimes in the lounge, private events, and then I coach people in the music industry because what you'll see, you probably know this because you seem to be very knowledgeable about the music industry. Like a lot of artists, old old and new, make maybe poor business decisions, so they don't own their IP or they don't get their proper
Yes.
credits. So
Yes.
my mission and passion is to help educate them so they can make better business decisions.
Yeah. For a little bit of disclosure, my husband was in an indie band, like back in the day. And yeah, he would talk about some of the stuff that would go on as far as contracts and, costs and things like that. And I mean, honestly, if you don't know how to navigate it, I don't know how you navigate it. And that's
Yeah,
a little bit with book writing too, I'm finding out as well.
yeah.
Because I'm putting together a book of my own and I'm like, okay, this
Oh,
is a whole bunch of different things that I'm not familiar with. So it's great that you're able to kind of guide people through some of those pain points and discuss the expectations. Because sometimes people don't realize when they sign a contract, for example, you get to spend a lot of money. Here's your money, but you know what? You're going to have to actually pay that back eventually
Yes.
because this is
Yes.
just to get you started, sort of thing.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
a little bit with books too. You get to actually produce a book if they give you any money up front.
Yeah,
So there's a
that's
lot of
perfect.
complications and twists and turns that people
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, what you're describing is like what's called an advance, and they give you an
Yes,
advance, and you think it's like, oh, it's a signing bonus. I can go buy a car, a house.
right.
No, no, no. You must recoup that advance, pay them back, and then you can get money. But people don't know that, and that's a really common, easy educational point. So yeah, and books are very similar. It's a very similar between owning and also good points, great points.
So I'm loving that you're doing that. So you're guiding people through that, and I love how that kind of marries into actually you being a teacher as well,
Hmm.
and then how that marries into writing a book, which is absolutely
Yes.
fantastic. So I'm going to probably be able to guess, but I'm going to have you tell me when you were a kid, what
Hmm.
did you really, really love doing? Like, maybe it's summer or snow day or something like that, and your feet hit the ground. What were some of the things that you did as a kid that just got you really charged up and excited?
I love play. I grew up playing soccer, so I love to play soccer. And then one of my favorite jobs in life was when I was a camp counselor at a soccer camp. That was probably one of the best jobs I ever
Oh,
had,
wow.
and so that was fun. Video games, had my Nintendo back in the day. I love video games, and then of course music. I'd always work at the grocery store as like a bag boy, take my tips and go to the record store and buy. That for the most part it was first records, but then CDs and collect. And so those are the three things that really got me excited.
I love that, and mostly because you have this competitive edge, obviously with the soccer, and
Yeah.
drive for excellence when you're teaching people, but then also you're able to kind of unplug with this music and really kind of enjoy life in that regard. I have to ask you though, if you remember, what was the very first album that you bought?
Okay. Very first album that I bought, I think it was Thriller, Michael
Oh,
Jackson. But
yes.
my very first
I think I had that on
CD,
cassette, which is
yes. Yeah,
terrible.
I think it was a cassette too. I had a cassette too, but my first little 45, which for the younger people, that's a smaller
A
record that you put
smaller
on
vinyl
vinyl,
record.
yes,
Yeah.
was Rick James Cold Blooded. I don't know why my dad let
Oh,
me buy that,
wow.
but yes, yes, but that was my first. I had that one and then the theme to Peanuts. Those are two. So it's like, it's
Wow, that
crazy.
is
Yeah.
like a big swing. That's a big
Yes,
swing.
yes.
So let me ask you this. We talked a lot about R&B and things like that. Do you find that that's what you gravitate towards? Or, I mean, like myself, I almost love practically all music. Like if I love it when people do things that I was like, oh, I've never heard a sound like that before.
Hmm. Yeah.
Or or sometimes the lyrics really capture me. And, sometimes that's a gift and a curse when you read the lyrics because you might really like the song and then you read the lyrics like, oh, these are terrible. Or the other
Yeah.
way around, you think it's a terrible song, then you read the
And
lyrics
real
like, oh my
lyrics.
God, this is really good.
Yeah.
So are you kind of all over the spectrum, or do you have favorites?
So I do gravitate towards R&B. I also like Afro beats is kind of a new genre that I
Oh yeah,
love.
yeah.
I've learned to love hip hop for sure because I grew up with hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Pop, pop has its place. Even country, particularly for the lyrics. I think country music has
Yeah.
some of
Oh,
the
oh, yeah.
best lyrics out there. Sugarland Stay. I think that's a phenomenal song.
That is.
I forget who sings Girl Crush. I'm forgetting the name of the group, but there's a lot of great lyrics in country. So I respect and love good music and good songwriting, good lyrics. So that covers all bases, even Latin music. So I'm just like, I love it all.
Do you play any instruments?
So if you see behind me, there's a little piano. So I play a piano, and I grew up playing the saxophone, and then I consider the turntables. That's an instrument also for DJ.
Absolutely. Now you say you grew up playing the saxophone. How old were you when you first like picked up an instrument? And was that like your
Okay.
first one?
The first one was a recorder. Then I
Oh,
advanced from.
who's got the contract on recorders? Honestly, because it's like, okay, here's the deal. Every kid in
Yes.
elementary school gets a recorder.
So the first one was the recorder. Then I advanced to the flute. I didn't like the flute very much because I didn't feel it was masculine enough for me. So then
I
I
get
went
it.
quickly from the flute to the saxophone. First alto saxophone, then tenor. I ended up knowing and learning how to play tenor, alto, and baritone saxophone. And I pretty much stuck with tenor saxophone. That's my instrument.
Very, very cool. Very, very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Have you had the opportunity to write your own music or write your own lyrics?
So lyrics, yes. So lyrics, yes. Actually, I'm working on a couple songwriting projects now. Music, yes. My music theory, like definitely knowing the proper like chords, 1 4 5, how to go from C to G to F. Probably, I'm still like learning that. So I've written some music, but I usually have some assistance by someone who's got better knowledge of music theory. But lyrics for sure. Like I love to write a good lyrics. I'm a little partial to the love songs because I'm a
Oh,
romantic at heart,
yes,
so I love
yes.
to write a good love song.
Oh, that's very, very cool. And um, so do you have, I mean, you're doing so much already, so I almost hate to ask this question, but do you have any aspirations to kind of pursue that at all? Like, get somebody to record it, like, or record it yourself, or things like that?
Yeah, yeah,
Do you
like
mix
that
it in
work.
when you're DJing? Do you like slip something in of
I
yours?
well, I do. I make remixes, so I'll sneak in some remixes that I make when I'm DJing, and there's a
Nice.
couple that one that went viral or whatever, quasi viral.
Oh,
So yes,
cool.
and definitely with my songwriting partner, we'll send our songs to maybe a producer who has a singer. So yeah, that's kind of I'll have that going. That's kind of a part of my musical practice. So yes, yes, that would love for I mean, I love Mariah Carey, so I would love for Mariah Carey to sing one of my songs,
Oh, that would be
or
awesome.
even Ariana Grande. She would be good, or Leela James. That's another artist that I would love. So yeah,
Yep, yep.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah, that would be a complete win on your part.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
with some of this discussion, we've kind of talked about what you do in your spare time, but what I like to talk to people about, because I think it's super important, is to use both sides of the brain. So, we have one very logic side that has it's the driven warrior. We got to get stuff done and things like that. But then we have this other side of our brain that is like, what, let's make something because when you get that chance to unplug, your left side gets stronger. You take those breaks. So you clearly break out into doing some creative things, but what else do you do just to kind of unplug and to recalibrate yourself?
I like to go for walks. I like to read fiction books
I
or,
do too.
fiction. I also like to maybe watch like older shows that I missed when I was growing up.
Yes.
Um, Even like going for drives kind of around the area or whatever is good, help unplug. I have a dog, so I'll take him out for walks. So those are some things I like to do. Maybe even journaling every once in a while. I need to
Hmm,
do that
hmm.
more, actually. Um, those are probably some things I do to try to unplug. I go to a restaurant and just kind of chill, sit there and just kind of relax. Those are probably the 4 or 5 things I like to do.
I love that you brought up, excuse me, some things that people may not think of as, for lack of a better term, as creative things. But when I speak about creative things, it's just things that kind of spark that other side of your brain. And you're talking about things like food and walks and things that just really spark and kind of break the bad habits we might have of working too hard and just like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm gonna just really enjoy these moments, and
Right.
these kind of these gifts that we have in life, which are quiet moments and long drives and our dog
Yeah.
and food and
Yeah.
things like that, which is why
Not,
probably during COVID everybody decided to get a dog
yeah.
because
Well, yeah,
they
yeah.
needed to
So,
have that break and constantly
yeah.
worrying, do I need to, what's the instructions for today, do I wipe down my groceries or can we stop
Yeah.
doing that?
Yeah.
It was crazy times for sure.
It was for sure. Yeah, like I'm a big fan of Julia Cameron, The Artist Way, and
Yes.
she talks about like I think oh yeah, I have it right here. Like this is the book. Drop that. Like The Artist
Yes,
Way
yes,
right
I have
there.
that
So,
too.
so I love this book and artist dates, like you go for a walk or you go to a museum or you go to the beach or whatever. I'm a big believer in the effectiveness of that. And I think it's I need to practice it more.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now, at the very beginning of this conversation, we talked about this is your second book that you're writing. What was the first book that you wrote?
The first book was called, oh, here it is, DJ's Mean Business, and it's
Oh
about,
my God, I love
yeah, I
it.
have them all over because I'm just doing so much work.
You never
It
know when
takes
you're
you,
gonna pull one out.
right, it takes you through the time slot of a DJ set and relates it to growing a business from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And it walks you through the
Oh my
journey of a
God.
DJ and how that relates to growing a business or a career. And I actually released that in April 14th, 2020. So right in the beginning, in the middle of the pandemic. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's
Um,
the stuff.
would people be able to find that on Amazon, for
Yeah.
example?
So you can
Oh,
find both
perfect.
on Amazon, both The Quiet Storm by Amani Roberts and DJ's Mean Business. And my pre-order is up now. My book will come out February 18th, The Quiet Storm. So yeah, I'm like heavy in book launch time.
Oh my goodness. Well, definitely. I mean, like I find it utterly fascinating. So
Yeah.
I will have all that information on how to find you and this book in the links to this podcast because I think there's definitely an audience out there that would
Oh yeah.
love to pre-order or find out, or even your first book, which is why I
Right.
had to ask about that,
Yeah.
um, because I think you're really kind of tapping into some spaces that people are not talking a lot about, which
Yes.
is I again, that's kind of like finding that new music sound. You're like, oh,
Hmm.
what's this? What's somebody
Yeah.
doing here? So
Yeah.
that's super
It's
cool like that.
it's good. It gives me hope that your daughter found a song she loved by Earth, Wind and Fire from back in the 70s. That gives me eternal hope. That
Same.
gives me
We
hope.
get so excited because we always say that she's an old soul, and then she
Yeah.
will come up with these things. And one of the other examples too, we she hopped in the car and she goes, "Mom, you've got to hear this song." And I'm like, "Well, surprise me. What is it what is it this time?" And it was one of the songs from Leslie Odom Jr. And
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
"What?" But she
Yeah.
was not wrong. She was not
Yeah.
wrong. It was an amazing song. We just recently did see him in concert because I was like, okay, this is going to be fun, and she, had a fantastic time. But I'm just thrilled that she has a more sophisticated palette
Yeah.
than
Mm.
average.
That's
It's not
good.
like a lot of this bubblegum stuff or,
Yeah.
craziness, but
You
stuff that
should you
actually has a little bit of wisdom and soul behind it.
yes, you should be proud and take some credit for that because she's, an emulation of you, so that's good. So she
That's
learned it from
probably true.
somewhere. She
There's
learned it
probably
from
some truth
somewhere.
to that too, which is great. All right, is there anything else that you want to share with us? Because I have enjoyed learning more about you, and
Mhm.
we are in a very similar community, and I don't think our paths have ever crossed.
No, not
So
yet. Yeah.
I love that. I might have seen a post of yours, though, but regardless, I love that we've had this opportunity to talk a little more, and
Yeah.
I can spread the word of what you're doing because I do think a lot of my listeners would be really interested in what you're
Cool.
doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate being on here with you, Catherine, and I have nothing else to share. You asked some great questions, so I'm glad I was able to answer them all.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being here. And again, like I said, I will have of Amani's information in the notes if you wish to find him and learn more about his book or what he's up to, because you're up to a lot of things. And I will say thank you for being a teacher because I hold teachers in very high regard. I think you guys definitely shape the world in our little minds of our kids. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
my pleasure. I
All
love
right,
it.
thanks so much.